the best new metal albums of the week. Plus, I got a question I want to ask you during Dealer's Choice. Welcome, metalheads. I'm the host of Heavy Metal Philosophy and writer for Metal Digest, John Barbas. Make sure you stick around to the end of the episode for this week's album art of the week. It's the weekend. That means we got new metal albums to talk about, and I'm bringing you my top 5 favorites. But before we do the top 5, I always talk about the major label releases, so let's do that now. At long last, we've got a new Kitty album entitled Fire, and it is just that, fire. And it is also one of my favorite stories in metal of the past couple of years, so make sure you go out and get this one. And if you're into heavy goth, there's a new EP from Black Veil Brides called Bleeders. And if you're an OG, you might be interested in this. The Cavalera Conspiracy has re-recorded and released the legendary Sepultura album Schizophrenia. So, if you are glad that the Cavalera brothers have that back under their banner, check it out. Coming in at number 5, Flur with Shittier, Slimier. Did I pronounce Flur correctly? That's text on the screen just in case. I can't stop laughing about the album title. And as always, every band's Bandcamp link will be in the description. Now, Flur has always been kind of weird and stupidly heavy, but this one is a compilation of demos showing their more experimental side. So you take a weird band and then this is the ones that they experimented with and didn't make it on albums. Yes, sign me up for that level of insanity. Coming in at number 4, Replicator, the center that cannot hold tech death out of Boston. And if you like riffs, this is the one for you, because this is a barrage of riffs. They hit you with a riff, and right as you're starting to lock into the groove, here's another riff. Don't lock in, we're fixing to throw a change up. And then you get, no, here's another riff. One after the other, constantly changing. The only thing that anchors it all is they're all so heavy. Coming in at number 3, Gorgatron, with Sentience Revoked death metal out of North Dakota, wouldn't you know? I got my hands on this one early. Y'all know what that means. My written review is already published in Metal Digest. Links in the description to all my writings. What I said about this one is it's a shining example of how some of the ugliest death metal can wind up being beautiful. It's like looking at a foul swamp and all of that dirty, muddy ugliness, and then you see flowers blooming on some certain plants that might draw you in, and you go, oh, that's beautiful. There's a predator in there, watch out. Coming in at number 2, Escalation, with Ruins of the Falling World. This is melodic death metal out of Poland, and I picked this one because of how groovy it is. There's a mix of groove metal riffs that seamlessly transition into full-on death metal chainsaw riffs, but it's also got this really clever way of arranging the songs. I think that's where the melodeath comes in, because there's some certain parts that aren't full-on blast beats all the time that just give it those nice peaks and valleys so that when the next heavy part hits, boom, it's real heavy. Now, I got an important question that I want to ask you during this week's Dealer's Choice segment, so stay tuned for that after we do number 1. But before we do number 1, I just want to remind you all that for a limited time, we've got the Nocturno collab in the Heavy Metal Philosophy merch store. You can get this, Nocturno's art, the Summer Brew Heavy Metal Philosophy t-shirt or tank top, plus all manner of other summertime stuff that will help you stay cool and awesome this summer. And again, it's only available during the summer. It'll end in September. So check that out, johnbarbas-shop.fourthwall.com. Links in the description. Now, let's do number 1. Coming in at number 1, Cavalera with the Formless Fires, black metal out of Sweden. And the old adage about black metal not having riffs, well, that rings hollow here, because this record has riffs for days. This is black metal for guitar nerds, because not only does it have riffs, but it has killer, and I mean killer guitar solos, heavily influenced by both speed metal and classic metal, and of course black metal with these evil chants and fry screams that give it that sort of menacing characteristic, but it's got all this lift and excitement. And I don't normally describe black metal albums as exciting, but this one definitely is, and that's why it's number one. And we're not even done with all the metal excitement because we still got Dealer's Choice and the album art of the week. All right, for Dealer's Choice, I love this segment because it allows me to pick stuff that really doesn't qualify. But this one, I wonder if this one should qualify. Because for a long time, I've been wondering, do you have to have an electric guitar for something to be metal? And the thing that got me thinking about that is I've heard several records this year that were electronic records that were real heavy. And I've heard other genres outside of metal be far darker than even some of the really dark metal records that I like. So I'm wondering, does it have to have electric guitar to be metal? Now, I've always sort of leaned towards, yes, it does have to have electric guitar because the riff is one of the central components to heavy metal. But maybe this one's an exception to the rules. I am going to unfortunately really butcher this pronunciation. I believe it's French. Maybe Greg from Greg's Whiskey Guy can help me out. Le Chance de Hazard. Oh man, I'm sorry. That was terrible. Live court. Here's the text on the screen. I'm so sorry. And I always feel bad when I butcher these pronunciations, but I especially feel bad on this one because of what an incredible work of art it is. This is a black metal opera. It's definitely classical music. It's definitely opera, but it doesn't have any electric guitars. It is full-on classical music. It's got some black metal vocals in there, but also the opera and the evil chants. It is certainly metal in the sense that when I listen to it, I go, oh, like that, but it's not a headbanging affair. It is pure classical music, and it's dense and well composed classical music at that. All the different vocal layers between the black metal vocals and the operatic singing give the malevolence this depth that make this more than just a weird novelty, because y'all know if it's weird I'm gonna like it, but it's just great music, period, that is the most unsettling classical music I've ever heard. And that's why it's this week's Dealer's Choice, because you absolutely have to check this one out. My favorite album art this week comes from Greenleaf, The Head and the Habit. Awesome album title, and look at this artwork. This is like the most fitting album cover for a stoner metal record that you could have. You got the trailer camper type deal out in the desert, which makes me think that the person here is on a vision quest out into the desert, and they find this magnificent tree, and by climbing the tree they wind up in the planets. Does it get more psychedelic than that? It's not just the psychedelia. I love the music on this record too, because all stoner metal and stoner rock is written in the pentatonic scale, which is the blues scale. But none of it sounds bluesy. None of it has that passion. But this album does. This album definitely sounds bluesy to me. Think of a band like Rival Sons, that sort of passionate blues rock. And then add in the experimental quirkiness and psychedelia of this band, Greenleaf, and that's the sort of sound that I'm hearing here. Really dug this record. And I got a question for you. Speaking of old stuff, what do y'all think about the nostalgia trip that's going on in metal right now? Limp Bizkit's touring again and people are excited about it. New metal is influencing the current generation of metalcore bands. All the old styles are back in vogue again. Why? Why are we in this nostalgia trip in the metal community right now? Well, I've been wondering that too, so I brought in my friend, the PhD candidate in metal studies, David Burke, to help me sort of work through the philosophy of why our culture is going through this nostalgia cycle right now. So if you want to check out that conversation podcast, just click right here. But most importantly, read philosophy, listen to metal. I love you.